Hi, and welcome back to the shop. I just got back from Green Street Joinery. We were shooting a video for the Today's Craftsman channel on how to use the Williams & Hussey molding machine to make custom molding. If you've watched my channel for a while, you may have seen that machine, and the machine that's going to be in the video is actually my machine because I sold it to Jeff and Rob about 2 years ago. So these are some cutoffs from a project they're working on, and I'm going to use these to frame the painting from last week's painting lesson. And if you're looking at this thinking, what is that? It's a piling. And if you've ever seen a piling in the water, it may make more sense to you. So the first thing I need to do to this molding is cut a small rabbet out on the inside to accept this little flange that is on the panel. I need the rabbet to be just about 1/4 inch by a heavy 1/8 inch, so the panel fits inside this space here, and that'll make the surface of the painting just a little proud of the molding. If you'd like to see how this molding was made and learn more about the molding machine, click on the link in the description and check out the newest video on our Today's Craftsman channel. After that first cut, I moved the fence over, raised the blade a little bit at a time until I was able to cut this piece away. Now that I've got a good cut here, I'll run the rest of the molding through the saw. Now I've got the rabbet cut in the molding, and you can see how that fits over the flange on the panel and creates that reveal around the painting. The next step is to cut the miters. I'm using the table saw and this miter saw sled to cut the miters. I made this a few months ago, and it worked really great for getting good tight miters. I forget why I built it up like this. It must have had something to do with avoiding tear out. I obviously don't need this for this more shallow piece of molding, but it'll still cut a nice 45. I've got the first 45 cut on all the molding, and I'll start with the short side, put the molding or the panel in the molding. I want it to be tight, but not too tight, and at the same time not that sloppy, and make a mark for the next cut. I've lined up the mark with the kerf in the sled, set up a stop block, and now I'll cut both short sides of the frame. I've lined up the next cut, readjusted the stop block, and now I'll cut both long sides of the frame. Now I'll use a little wood glue and 1¼ inch nails to tack the parts together, and hopefully the nails don't blow out one side of the frame. Ultimately, this frame is getting painted, so if I do get a nail blowout, I can fix it. Let's hope for the best. I'm holding the gun in this direction because when the nails come out of the gun, they're less likely to bend this way or that way, and more likely to bend this way or that way. In this case, it's kind of one or the other, but for some reason I'm thinking holding the gun like this might be the best solution. So far, so good. Looks pretty good. Pretty good miters there. Okay, now if everything was done right, this should fit right in here like that. Okay, but what we want to do next is build the back of this frame up because I need a little room to put some kind of clip here to hold the painting in place and for the painting to sit flush against the wall. Here's another piece of scrap wood that I picked up from Green Street Joinery, and I'm going to use this to build out the back of the frame, and I'm going to attach it using butt joints, which will reinforce these miters. I've filled the nail holes and primed the frame with Fresh Start by Benjamin Moore. And I'm going to use imitation gold leaf on this frame. And if you've ever seen real gold leaf, there's red underneath the gold, and that is clay. And this color is cinnamon. It's a Benjamin Moore color. And it looks pretty close to the clay that you would see on the real thing. So I want to get probably 3 coats of this cinnamon color on the frame, and I'll sand lightly in between coats with 220 sandpaper. You're looking for a nice smooth surface to the paint. I just finished sanding the frame with 320 sandpaper, and it's a nice smooth surface. So now we'll go upstairs to the art studio and look for the gold leafing stuff. It's not real gold leaf, it's actually aluminum. This is Wonder size. It's water soluble, so you'll be able to clean the brush with a little soap and water. You don't need too much of it. And I'm going to try to put this on as evenly as possible and work my way around the frame. First I'll use the brush to get any dust off the frame. I did vacuum it. It's this kind of milky white color. Once it becomes transparent, that means it's dry. It usually takes about 15 minutes, and then I can start applying the gold leaf. The sizing is dry, and you can tell because it's completely translucent. I wish I was able to get a better or smoother coat of paint. I don't think the brush I was using was the best. I had also just washed it, and maybe because the bristles were wet, they kind of didn't separate, so I didn't get the smoothest layer of sizing, but I'm not going to let that stop me. So now, this is aluminum. I can handle it. If it was gold, I could not handle it like this. This is much easier to handle. So it's going to stick anywhere where the sizing is, and I think I'll try to go on the inside first. I think this little round bull nose is going to maybe give me some trouble. Yeah, you see it's not going in there. Maybe I can make that part of the overall design though. This is the widest frame I've ever tried this process with. Usually I'm just dealing with like a 3/4 inch reveal, maybe a 1/2 inch, much easier. But I'll just go with it and work my way around the frame. I can patch in that little spot there with just a small piece. I'm taking some of the scraps, I guess you would call this, and just trying to fill those areas in. It's actually working pretty good too. Remember, the leafing only sticks to the areas where there's sizing, so the rest of it just kind of falls away with the action of this dry brush. All these little gold flakes will get all over the shop, so I'm going to vacuum them up now. When people do authentic gold leaf, they overlap the leaves, and that creates kind of a pattern around the frame. And I'm going to just try to do that with this by making a line of adhesive about every 3.5 inches to try to replicate that pattern. Remember, the gold leaf is only going to stick where the adhesive is. And it doesn't have to be any particular pattern. Just try to keep it around 3.5 inches apart or so, because that's about the size of authentic gold leaf. It's taken about 10 or 15 minutes for the adhesive to dry, and you can tell because it's translucent. And I've cut one of those booklets into strips so I don't waste a full sheet of the gilding or fake gold leaf, whatever you want to call it. And I'll try to basically get it on the inside first and use the brush to work it around. It's hard to see now, but once I remove a little of the gold, you'll see the red come through and these bands will be more visible, which I think adds to the look of the frame. Now the plan is to polish through the gold and into that reddish clay color. I'm using a cotton rag, old t-shirt, and a little shellac that will lubricate the rag and seal the frame at the same time. So we'll just go for it and see how it works. You can start to see the red coming through. It also smooths out the gold metal. So far, so good. And you can go as much as you want, have more red come out. As the red comes out, you can start to see those bands. The nice thing about shellac is it does dry very fast. So that red right there, I like that. That red coming through. The shellac only takes a few minutes to dry. Now I'll bring the frame outside and hit it with one thin coat of lacquer. Okay, well, I think that turned out pretty good. A little different, maybe a little big, but definitely fun. I think it looks pretty cool. I think in the right house this would work. And that's the fun thing about making these sort of casual paintings. They give you a reason to make a frame. And I just never get tired of putting paintings in frames. This frame painting is available on my website. I'll have a link to it down in the description and right here. And I also have a frame system on my site. This is what it's like. So I make these panels that fit into the frame here. And so if you're not a woodworker, but you would like to try the gold leafing, you can purchase one of these. It comes with two of these panels and practice your gold leaf. I've got, I think, one or two videos on how I frame or how I gold leaf these. Generally, I use painter's tape on the edge. I paint the inside black or white, and I just focus on the outside edge. Here's an example right here. And so it's a sapele, and then you have the gold leaf on the front. And on this one, I painted the inside edge here white. So that's it for now. There will be another painting lesson tomorrow morning, right around 8:30 or 9 o'clock. So if you've never tried painting before and you think it might be something you want to do, definitely check it out. And if you think it's something you want to do in the future, but you're not ready to do it yet, just put it on and walk away. So that way it looks like people are watching it for a long time, and that's good for me. It's good for the whole algorithm thing. So as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. If you've ever thought about painting, I hope that you'll check out my painting lessons right here on YouTube. They're fun, free, and if you make a painting, you'll be able to make a frame with some of that scrap wood that I'm sure is hanging around the shop.